In the land of Canaan lived a man named Jacob, who had 12 sons. But of all his sons, he loved Joseph the most, for Joseph was the son of his old age. To show his affection, Jacob made him a beautiful, richly ornamented coat. This favoritism made Joseph's brothers incredibly jealous, and their hatred grew when Joseph shared 2 dreams he had. In the first, he dreamt they were all binding sheaves of grain in the field, and his sheaf stood upright while his brothers' sheaves bowed down to it. In the second, the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. His brothers despised him even more for these dreams, seeing them as a sign of his arrogance. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending the flocks near Shechem. When they saw him approaching from a distance, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes the dreamer," they sneered. But Reuben, the eldest, intervened. He suggested they throw Joseph into an empty cistern in the wilderness instead of shedding his blood, secretly planning to rescue him later. So they stripped Joseph of his beautiful coat and threw him into the pit. While they sat down to eat, a caravan of Ishmaelites heading to Egypt passed by. Judah then had an idea. Instead of killing Joseph, why not sell him? They would profit and avoid having their brother's blood on their hands. His brothers agreed. They pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver. To cover their tracks, they slaughtered a goat, dipped Joseph's coat in the blood, and brought it back to their father, Jacob. When Jacob saw the torn, bloody coat, he was overcome with grief, believing a wild animal had devoured his beloved son. He mourned for Joseph for many days, refusing to be comforted. Meanwhile, the Ishmaelites took Joseph to Egypt and sold him to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered in Potiphar's house. Potiphar saw that the Lord blessed everything Joseph did, so he put him in charge of his entire household. Joseph was handsome and well-built, and Potiphar's wife began to desire him. Day after day, she tried to seduce him, but Joseph refused, saying, "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" One day, when no one else was in the house, she grabbed his cloak, but Joseph fled, leaving the garment in her hand. Scorned and furious, she lied to her husband, claiming Joseph had tried to assault her. Enraged, Potiphar had Joseph thrown into the king's prison. But even in prison, the Lord was with Joseph. The prison warden took a liking to him and put him in charge of all the other prisoners. While in prison, Joseph met 2 of Pharaoh's officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. One night, they both had dreams that troubled them. Joseph, seeing their distress, offered to interpret their dreams. The cupbearer dreamt of a vine with 3 branches that produced grapes, which he squeezed into Pharaoh's cup. Joseph told him that in 3 days he would be restored to his position. The baker dreamt of 3 baskets of white bread on his head, but birds were eating from the top basket. Joseph interpreted this to mean that in 3 days he would be executed. Everything happened exactly as Joseph had foretold. Joseph had asked the cupbearer to remember him to Pharaoh, but once freed, the cupbearer forgot all about him. 2 full years passed. Then Pharaoh himself had 2 disturbing dreams. In the first, 7 fat, healthy cows came out of the Nile, followed by 7 ugly, thin cows that ate the healthy ones. In the second, 7 full, good heads of grain were devoured by 7 thin, blighted heads. Pharaoh's magicians and wise men couldn't interpret the dreams. It was then that the chief cupbearer finally remembered Joseph. Joseph was brought from the prison, and he told Pharaoh that God was revealing what he was about to do. The 7 good cows and good heads of grain represented 7 years of great abundance, while the 7 thin cows and blighted heads represented 7 years of severe famine that would follow. Joseph advised Pharaoh to appoint a wise man to store up grain during the years of plenty. Pharaoh was so impressed that he appointed Joseph as his second-in-command over all of Egypt. He gave Joseph his signet ring, dressed him in fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. Joseph, now 30 years old, traveled throughout Egypt, gathering and storing immense quantities of grain. The 7 years of abundance came and went, and the devastating famine began. When the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, he told them to go to Joseph. The famine was severe in Canaan as well, so Jacob sent his 10 older sons to Egypt to buy grain. They came before Joseph and bowed down to him, not recognizing their own brother. Joseph recognized them immediately, but he pretended to be a stranger and accused them of being spies. To prove their honesty, he demanded they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, to him, keeping Simeon as a hostage. Heartbroken, the brothers returned to Jacob, who initially refused to let Benjamin go. But as the famine worsened, Judah pledged his own life for Benjamin's safety, and Jacob reluctantly agreed. When they returned to Egypt with Benjamin, Joseph was overjoyed and invited them to a feast. He then secretly had his silver cup placed in Benjamin's sack of grain. As they were leaving the city, Joseph's steward stopped them, found the cup, and brought them back. Judah pleaded for Benjamin's life, offering to become a slave in his place, so their father wouldn't die of grief. Overwhelmed with emotion, Joseph could no longer hide his identity. He wept aloud and said, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" His brothers were terrified, but Joseph reassured them. "Do not be distressed," he said. "It was not you who sent me here, but God. He sent me ahead of you to preserve life." He urged them to bring their father and their entire families to live in Egypt, in the fertile land of Goshen. Pharaoh was pleased with the news and provided wagons and provisions for the journey. When the brothers returned and told Jacob that Joseph was alive and ruling Egypt, the old man's spirit revived. Jacob and his entire household, 70 people in all, traveled to Egypt. The reunion between Jacob and his long-lost son Joseph was a moment of pure joy and tears. They settled in Goshen, where they thrived and multiplied. Before Jacob died, he blessed Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and then blessed all 12 of his own sons, foretelling the future of their descendants. Joseph lived to be 110 years old, seeing his great-grandchildren. He made the sons of Israel swear an oath that when God brought them out of Egypt, they would carry his bones with them. And so, the story of Joseph, the dreamer, who was sold into slavery, became a powerful testament to God's providence and forgiveness. Thank you for watching. If you found this story inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe for more content from the pages of history.